I never thought ancient Chinese wisdom would help me find my way back to my ancestral roots, until a random flyer changed everything about how I understood manifesting and what home truly means. My name is Maria, and at 53, I thought I'd missed my chance at home ownership. Living in Albuquerque, watching property values climb while my savings account stayed stubbornly flat, I'd resigned myself to renting forever. As a member of the Laguna Pueblo, I'd grown up understanding the sacred connection between people and land, but somewhere along the way, I'd lost that connection to my own life. The morning that would change everything started like any other Tuesday in March. I was walking to the community center for my weekly volunteer shift when a bright yellow flyer caught my eye, taped to a telephone pole. Feng Shui for beginners. Transform your space, transform your life. Something about those words made me stop dead in my tracks. The universe is listening. That's what my grandmother used to say, though she'd say it in Karis, our native language. But I hadn't been listening to the universe for a long time. I'd been too busy surviving, too focused on what I couldn't have instead of what was possible. I almost walked past that flyer. Almost. But something, call it intuition, call it synchronicity, made me pull out my phone and take a picture. The workshop was happening the next evening, just 6 blocks from my apartment. $25. I had $25. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my grandmother's house on the reservation, how every room felt like it was breathing with life and purpose, how the morning light would filter through her kitchen window just right, how the furniture seemed to know exactly where it belonged. I hadn't felt that kind of harmony in a space since I was a child. But what happened next, I could never have imagined. The community center classroom was packed with about 30 people, all ages, all backgrounds. The instructor, a woman named Linda with kind eyes and graying hair, began by asking us to close our eyes and think about our ideal living space. Not just how it looked, but how it felt. Feng Shui isn't about moving furniture around, she said. It's about understanding that our environment and our energy are deeply connected. Your thoughts create your reality, and your space reflects and influences those thoughts. Something clicked. This wasn't so different from what my grandmother had taught me about sacred spaces, about how the energy of a place could hold you or help you grow. She'd never called it feng shui, but she'd understood the universal laws that governed how energy moved through spaces. Linda walked us through the basics, the Bagua map, the 5 elements, the importance of clutter-free pathways for energy flow. But what really got my attention was when she talked about the wealth corner. The far left corner of your home, when you're standing at the front door looking in, she explained. This area governs your relationship with abundance. If it's cluttered, dark, or neglected, it might reflect how you feel about your own worthiness to receive prosperity. My stomach dropped. I thought about my apartment, specifically that corner where I'd shoved boxes of old bills, broken appliances, and general chaos. It was like a graveyard of financial stress. I felt my whole body tense up as the realization hit me. For years, I'd been literally living in a space that reinforced my scarcity mindset. Every time I walked past that corner, I was unconsciously telling myself that I didn't deserve abundance, that financial mess was just my normal. But here's where it gets interesting. Linda wasn't just teaching us about Chinese philosophy. She was teaching us about vibrational alignment, about how our external environment could help raise our vibration and support our manifestation practice. Your home should be a reflection of your highest self, she said. If you want to attract abundance, your space needs to feel abundant. If you want to attract love, your space needs to feel loving. The universe is listening to what your environment is telling it about what you believe you deserve. That night, I went home and stared at my apartment with new eyes. I'd been living there for 8 years, but I'd never really lived there. I'd been surviving there, storing my stuff there, sleeping there. But I hadn't been consciously creating a space that supported my dreams. I started small. That wealth corner? I spent the entire weekend clearing it out. 3 garbage bags of old bills, broken electronics, and random junk I'd been avoiding for years. Then I cleaned the corner thoroughly, painted the wall a warm earth tone that reminded me of the red rocks around Albuquerque, and placed a small plant there, a jade plant, which Linda had mentioned was good for abundance. The shift was immediate and almost scary. Within a week, I got a call about a part-time job opportunity I'd applied for months earlier and forgotten about. The same week, I found a $20 bill in an old jacket pocket. Small things, but they felt like signs from the universe that something was changing. I kept going with the feng shui principles, but I started blending them with my own cultural understanding. I created a small altar in my bedroom with sage, a piece of turquoise my grandmother had given me, and a photo of the land where I'd grown up. I began each morning with gratitude practice, thanking the 4 directions like my grandmother had taught me. But now I was also thanking my space for supporting my dreams. But the real transformation was happening in my mind. I started visualization exercises, but not the way I'd heard about them before. Instead of just seeing myself in a dream house, I would sit in that cleaned-up wealth corner and feel what it would be like to have roots, to have a place that was truly mine. I could feel the cool tile floors under my feet, smell the sage I'd grow in the garden, hear the wind chimes on the front porch. Abraham Hicks talks about getting into the feeling place of your desire, and for the first time, I understood what that meant. It wasn't about desperately wanting something I didn't have. It was about raising my vibration to match the energy of someone who already had what I was seeking. 2 months into my feng shui journey, I was walking the dogs from the animal shelter, my volunteer work, when I noticed a "for sale" sign on a small adobe house I'd walked past hundreds of times. But this time, instead of my usual thought pattern of, "I could never afford that," I heard myself think, "I wonder what it's like inside." That small shift in thinking changed everything. I found myself walking past that house more often, not in a desperate, obsessive way, but with genuine curiosity. I started researching first-time homebuyer programs, something I'd never done before because I'd always assumed I wouldn't qualify. I discovered there were specific programs for Indigenous people, grants I'd never heard of, resources I'd never explored. The more I learned, the more possible it seemed. But here's the thing. I wasn't approaching it from a place of lack anymore. I was approaching it from a place of positive mindset and genuine excitement about the possibilities. My apartment continued to transform. I painted the walls in colors that made me feel alive, warm terracotta in the living room, sage green in the bedroom. I bought a few pieces of art from local Indigenous artists. I created a vision board, but instead of just gluing pictures on poster board, I made it a sacred practice, meditating on each image and feeling the emotions of already having what I desired. Then came the test that almost broke my faith entirely. I got pre-approved for a mortgage, a moment I'd dreamed about for years. But when I made an offer on the little adobe house, I was outbid by someone with cash. Then it happened again with another house, and again. I remember sitting in my car after the 3rd rejection, crying and feeling like maybe this whole law of attraction thing was just wishful thinking. Maybe I was too old, too late, too unrealistic. That night, I almost cleared out my wealth corner and gave up. But then I remembered something Linda had said in the workshop. Feng Shui isn't about forcing outcomes. It's about creating conditions for your highest good to manifest, even when it looks different than what you expected. I decided to surrender the how and trust the what. I kept my visualization practice but changed the focus. Instead of seeing myself in that specific adobe house, I visualized myself in a home that was perfect for me, whatever that might look like. I practiced letting go of attachment to specific outcomes while maintaining clear intention about what I truly wanted, a safe, beautiful space where I could honor my heritage and create a life I loved. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about quantum manifestation, the idea that when we change our energy, we change what we attract. I started to embody the energy of someone who already had a home, even while I was still renting. I hosted friends for dinner parties in my tiny apartment. I started a small herb garden on my fire escape. I treated my rental like the sacred space it was. And then the miracle happened, though it didn't look like a miracle at first. My landlord called to tell me he was selling the building, and I'd need to move out in 3 months. My first reaction was panic. But then I remembered, the universe is listening, and sometimes what looks like a setback is actually a setup for something better. I had saved enough for a down payment by then, and I started looking at houses with genuine excitement instead of desperate urgency. I worked with a realtor who specialized in helping Indigenous buyers navigate the homeownership process. I kept my feng shui practices going, making sure my apartment stayed clear and energetically aligned, even as I packed boxes. The house that chose me wasn't the one I expected. It was on the west side of Albuquerque, in a neighborhood that felt alive with possibility. Not the small adobe I'd originally fallen in love with, but a 1960s ranch house with huge windows and a backyard that backed up to open space. The moment I walked through the front door, I felt that same sense of rightness I'd remembered from my grandmother's house. The wealth corner was a sunroom, bright, airy, perfect for the larger jade plant I'd been nurturing. The kitchen window faced east, where I could watch the sunrise over the Sandia Mountains every morning. There was space for a real garden, room for an office where I could work on the freelance writing I'd been wanting to pursue. But the most beautiful part was what I felt in that space. It felt like home. Not just a place to live, but a place where I could create my dream life. A place where I could honor my ancestors while building something new. A place where my energy could flow freely and support all the dreams I was still discovering. The closing process wasn't without challenges. There were inspection issues, mortgage complications, moments when I wondered if it would all fall through. But I kept my feng shui practices going, kept my apartment clean and clear, kept visualizing myself in a home that was perfect for me. On the day I got the keys, I understood that this had been about so much more than real estate. This journey had been about reclaiming my relationship with abundance, with home, with the power of intention. It had been about learning to blend ancient wisdom, both from my own culture and from traditions around the world, with practical action and unwavering faith. I'm writing this from my kitchen table, looking out at the herb garden I planted last spring. The sage is growing beautifully, and I harvest it for my weekly smudging practice. The wealth corner of my house is now a meditation space with cushions, crystals, and a small altar that honors both my Pueblo heritage and my spiritual awakening through feng shui. But here's what I want you to understand. This wasn't about the house. The house was just the physical manifestation of an inner transformation. When I changed my relationship with my environment, I changed my relationship with myself. When I started attracting abundance in my living space, I started attracting abundance in all areas of my life. The Feng Shui workshop was just the beginning. Since moving into my home, I've launched the freelance writing business I'd been dreaming about for years. I've deepened my relationships with friends and family. I've started teaching workshops myself, sharing how Indigenous wisdom and Feng Shui principles can work together to create spaces that support our highest good. Every morning, I wake up in a space that reflects who I am and supports who I'm becoming. The sunrise through my kitchen window reminds me that each day is a new opportunity to align my vibration with my dreams. The clear pathways through my house remind me to keep my thoughts clear and focused on what I want to create. The abundance corner, now bright and thriving, reminds me that I am worthy of all the good things life has to offer. This is what I know now that I didn't know before. Your thoughts create your reality, but your environment shapes your thoughts. When you create a space that supports your dreams, you're not just organizing furniture, you're organizing your energy to support manifestation. You don't need to be feng shui expert to start. You don't need to own your home to create sacred space. You just need to begin where you are, with what you have, and trust that the universe is listening to what your environment is telling it about what you believe you deserve. If you're ready to transform your space and your life, start with one corner. Clear it out, clean it up, and place something there that represents your dreams. Feel the shift in energy. Notice what changes in your thoughts, your mood, your opportunities. Because here's the truth. You are a conscious creator, and your environment is one of your most powerful tools. The home you're dreaming of isn't just about square footage or location. It's about creating a space where your soul can breathe, where your dreams can take root, where you can honor both who you've been and who you're becoming. The universe is listening. Your space is speaking. What is it saying about what you believe you deserve? If this story resonates with you, if you believe that sacred spaces can support manifestation, I'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell me, what's one small change you could make to your space today that would support your dreams? And if this story inspired you to think differently about your own relationship with home and abundance, please like this video and subscribe for more stories about creating your dream life through the power of intention and practical spiritual awakening. Remember, you don't just live in your space lives in you. Make it count.